What's up, you guys? Get ready to have your mind blown. This is what you're going to learn today. So, see this headshot, pretty standard thing. I'm going to run this action, and while I do that, let me introduce myself. I'm Justin Perry. I'm a commercial retoucher and photographer, and my goal is to help you speed up your workflow in Photoshop so that you can earn a good living doing retouching. Now, in the time it took for me to introduce myself, the action has run, and let's see what's happened. We have a perfectly selected person, including a hair mask, that has been refined and had a background dropped in, ready for us to continue retouching. This probably would have been about 10 minutes of work, and we did it in about 10 seconds. So that's what you're going to learn how to do. I'm going to walk you through the process of creating actions and automations in Photoshop to be able to do this yourself. So stick around to the end to learn how to create these kind of actions, and let's get going. So let's first talk about what actions are. Actions are a way to record the steps that we take in Photoshop and then play those steps back in order. Very simple. There's no scripting, there's no code work involved in this. It's something that anybody can learn to do, and you can pick up very quickly. So let me just show you how this works. To see your actions, you want to click this play icon. If you don't see it, go up to Window and Actions, and that's going to bring that Actions panel to the front for you. Now, remember, you can move these panels around and snap them wherever you want. I'm going to kind of float it out here in the middle so that you can kind of see what I'm doing here. Now, my Actions panel has a ton in there because I have a ton of actions. Basically, my philosophy is if I do something more than 2 times in Photoshop, I'm just going to record it, and that way I can run it back in the future. So to create a new action, if yours opens up like this, there's actually 2 ways of viewing actions. There's button mode, which is what this is. It allows you to click a button and do a thing, right? Very easy. This is the best way to interact with actions while you're using them. Now there's also, the editing mode. So if you click the settings icon up here in the corner of your actions palette and toggle the button mode, it'll flip between button mode and like your recording settings mode. So this is what we want to see to actually edit our actions and create new ones. So you can kind of see here, if you go in and you open up one of the default actions Photoshop gives you, there should be a few in there for you. You can see that there's a bunch of states and recorded steps under each one. And these are the steps that Photoshop has captured for each action you did in the program. So the types of things that are captured are, opening up new layers, new adjustment layers, changes to adjustment layers, selecting and deselecting layers is also recorded. And that's very important for us to string these actions even bigger. We want to make sure we select the right layers and deselect them strategically, and record those steps as well. So let me just show you quickly how this works. I'm going to go up to the top, down to the bottom of the actions panel and hit the plus icon. That's going to create a new action. And this is where we can name it. I'm going to name it test action 2 for tutorial. And then you can pick a set. The sets are basically folders. This is how you're going to organize your actions. You can create sets later. So just leave it alone and it'll drop it into like your first one. And we can reorganize them as we go. Unfortunately, you can't create a new set within the set dropdown. That's kind of unfortunate. The function key, that's how I ran the action earlier. I had my action set to Shift F11, and that's how I ran it in the intro. I love function keys. I use a gaming keyboard actually while working, and it has additional buttons that I can map to different actions and certain things. So I can talk about that in a future video, how to set all of that up to be most efficient and the kinds of things I think should be mapped to function keys that you'll do over and over again. Color, this is how you pick the color that is highlighted when you're back into button mode, so that you can find things easier and group them by color, that sort of thing. I'm going to use violet because I don't use it often, and that'll help me find this test action. So hit record, and at this point we're recording our steps. So be very careful what you do at this point because it is recording what you're doing. So let's say I come down here and I click a new layer icon. It is, you can see over here, it has recorded a make new layer step and any attributes that I had made when I made that layer. So there are no attributes here because it's just a simple making layer. If I went up to layer, new layer, and I made a layer here, now if I set a name, say I set this as retouching is what I'd name it, and I set a color for that layer, maybe orange, and I set a blend mode, let's go with multiply. If I hit OK now, you can see that when I hit this make layer drop down, it actually captured those attributes. So I've got the retouching, the blend mode, and the slot color. So if I were to hit stop, and let's say I delete all of these layers out, and I hit play on my action, test action, it's going to create the new layer that use, no attributes, just the standard new layer. And then it's going to make my other layer again, including the blend mode and the other attributes. So that's the basic steps here. Now, if we want to keep working on this action, we can just click on our last step and hit record. And we can keep recording on this action past the last step that we just recorded. Hey, it's me from the future here. I'm re-recording this section. There's a very important step I did not explain the first time I made this video, so here we go. When we're recording the steps in our actions, we want to make sure we always immediately rename the layer that we just made to something else, something unique, so that the next time we run the action, Photoshop will reference the layer correctly. Let me show you what I mean. So I'm going to delete everything out of this action that I made previous, and let me just record 2 levels layers. So I'm going to create a new action, or actually I have one made already, so I can start recording in this one. I'm going to hit record, and let's say I want to make 2 levels layers. I'm going to go down and create a levels layer 1, and then let's make a levels layer 2. Now let's say we want to adjust levels 1 to be a little bit brighter, and we want to adjust levels 2 to be darker, punchier, like this. So you'll see that over here in our actions panel, it captured making the adjustment layers, and then selecting levels 1, and then setting the current adjustments for levels 1, and then creating levels 2, and then making the adjustments to levels 2. So when I hit stop, if I were to delete these out and I were to play my action, I will have created 2 levels layers with these attributes. Now, that's all well and good, and it will work as long as there's no other levels layers in our file that have layer 1 and 2 as the names. So let me show you what I mean. So let's say I've already been working on this file for quite a while, and I've got a few layers in here, and I've got a levels layer 1 layer, and that's maybe here, and I have another levels layer, and that's up top, and that one's called levels layer 2. Now, when I play, notice there's no changes, there's no adjustments to these levels as of right now. If I were to just play my action that I just made, something weird happens. My levels 1 from before now has these changes applied to it, and my levels 2 from before now have these changes applied to it, and the ones my action just made were actually called levels 3 and levels 4. And the reason for that is because the action did not create new layers with unique file names. It just used the default names. So when the action here says create a new adjustment layer, it made one with the default name, which because there was 2 already, it made 3. And then when it made the next one, since there were 3 already, it made number 4. And then we made adjustments via our action to levels 1 and levels 2, which were the ones that already existed in the file. So that's why this is really important. We need to make sure we rename these. So what is the proper way to do this when we're setting up our actions? It is, and this is where you really want to make a note of this. This is so important. This will screw you up if you don't do it right. I'm going to delete all of that out. I'm going to start recording. I'm going to create my new levels layer without clicking off of it, because it is, when we make the change, it says set current layer. The current layer is the one that was just made. So we can immediately rename this layer to levels something. I'm just going to call it levels minus minus because I'm going to drop my levels down with this one. Set. Now you see it makes a step that says set current layer to that name. Now when I make a new levels layer, it's going, let's immediately name this levels plus plus. Set current layer to levels plus plus was captured in our action. Now, if we select levels minus minus, you see that it made a step that says select layer levels minus minus. And now I can make my change to that layer, right? And then if I go back to the top one, it makes a step that says select layer levels plus plus. And then it's going to capture the changes we made to that level. Now, if I hit stop, delete all of this out, and kind of recreate where we were before. So we had a few layers in here. We had 2 levels layers. One was down here. One was up here. They're named levels 1 and 2. If I were to run my action now, I get my 2 levels layers, and they have the adjustments that we needed, and they did not affect the levels layers that were already in my file. So this is just why this is so important. We always want to name our layers as we go, and we want to name our layers without deselecting them in order to make sure that they get the right name and that our action is always referencing the layer that we want, so that, you know, it doesn't screw up our file, and we don't want to screw up any of our existing levels or our existing layers in the file with our actions. So back to past me to keep going. Test actions. And let's make a dodging and burning stack. So a dodging and burning stack is basically a stack of curves layers that will allow us to paint up and down in order to brighten or darken certain sections of the photo. This is something I do on almost every single photo I touch. So here's how we would build an action that does that. Let's come down and create a new action. I'm going to name this DB stack test tutorial so that I can get rid of it later. And I hit record. Now remember our order of operations matters and the order we click things matter. So what we want to do first is create a group, and I'm gonna immediately name that group dodge burn. And now let's start creating our curves layers within this group. So the first thing we want to do is start from the bottom, and we're going to call this minus, because this is going to be our most curved down layer. Then we're going to create a curve layer on top of that. We're going to call this minus. We're going to create a new curve layer on top of that. We're going to call this plus plus, or plus, just one plus. And then we're going to create a curves layer on top of that called plus plus. And now it's always, after you've done some steps like this, it's always good to stop, pause, play it back, and make sure that it works. So let's go ahead and, actually I need to set that layer, deselect everything, hit stop. So you can see here our current steps as they've been captured, make the group, setting layers, blah, 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 blah. We rename them. Now I'm going to delete all of this out and create a few layers on top of this photo, just some dummy layers to make sure that my action is going to run correctly and not going to pull weird layers from different places. So I'm going to go up here and play the action. And what we should get is a folder that has these curve layers dropped inside of it. If you did it correctly, it should look just like this. And if you've done it correctly, it should not matter what you have selected when you run the action. So if I have layer 3 selected and I hit play, it should run the action and drop my folder right on top of layer 3. And, you know, same thing here, play, it drops them on top of layer 5. So good, we're good to go. I'm going to play the action again, and this is how we can keep editing and kind of pick up where we stopped off. So I'm going to just have nothing selected, hit play, and we have our folder with our curve layers in it. So if we just select our last step in the action, which I always make sure to to toss a deselect layers in my action so that I can start from a point very easily of having things deselected, right? And so now I have a good point of where to pick up when I'm going to keep recording. So let's hit record and it'll keep going. So hit record and to keep, adding this, I can now select layer minus minus and set these properties. So I usually will drag something pretty intense for my lowest one. Now I can, let's try to pull this property off to the side so that you can see what's going on. Now I can select layer minus, pull this one, kind of something more like that. Select layer plus, and see how every time now that I've renamed them, it's capturing the name of the layer I selected. So select layer plus, pull that up, select layer plus plus, pull that up a lot. And now this is the dodge burn stack. If you don't know anything about doing dodge burn, that's fine. We're gonna wanna set all of these to luminosity. So blend mode. So now I can, again, close my folder, deselect, because we wanna just capture these deselect layers in our action, and then to kind of reset ourselves. And now I can select layer plus, set that to luminosity, select layer plus plus, luminosity, same thing all the way down, and luminosity. So now it has captured all of those things. We hit stop, and actually I want to toss a deselect layers in here as well to know that I ended my action. And now we hit stop. So again, we delete all of this out and we run our action and test it. So when we get done, we should have stack of layers. They should all be set to luminosity, and they should all be have our curves captured in them. So that looks absolutely perfect. Let's test it one more time with a layer selected. So we run our action again, and now it should toss it on top of layer 2, which it does. So, that's perfect. That's exactly what we want. Now, the next thing to make a dodge burn stack that works like this is we need to set all of those masks to black, fill black, so that they, are easy to start painting on, and we don't want to, we want it to be set up to be able to be ready to go. We don't want to have to fill those masks with black when we start, after we've run the action, if that makes sense. So what I'm going to do actually is show you now how to stack an action within an action. So let's make another action, and we're going to call this one fill black. I'm going to call it fill black test, and hit record. And now I'm going to just make a new layer, and I'm just going to fill it with black. So that's shift delete or shift backspace on a PC, and it's going to just be a normal fill black step. And now that we've done, actually, here's a little trick for you. I kind of screwed up here. I started recording before I want it to, so I captured this make layer and the selecting the hue saturation. I don't want any of that. I just want the fill black section. I don't need to redo it all. I can just hit stop, select these steps that I don't actually want in my action, and delete them. So now if I delete this layer and I make a layer and I fill it with black, that'll work. If I select a mask and run my fill black action, it'll fill my mask with black. Same thing, we could make another one of these that is a fill white action. Hit record, and let's just do a shift delete. Well, again, I have to select something first. So shift delete, shift backspace, and we're gonna fill with white. Stop recording, delete out the select layer part of the action, and now again, if I run that, I should be able to fill these with white very quickly. And let's make one more that is fill 50% gray. So I'm going to do fill 50% gray, test, hit record. And now if I do one more shift delete, we can fill that with 50% gray. And again, now if I run that action, I can fill anything with gray. So let's delete all of these out. Let's run our dodge burn stack test action that we made. And this is where we ended last time, right? So we've got all these curves. Now we want to quickly fill these with black. What we can do is start from deselected, because again, that's where we were when we ended our action. Select that last state of your action you recorded, hit record, and now we can start filling these with black using the fill black action we made earlier. So we're going to select layer minus minus. The mask is by default selected when we select the layer. So now we can run our fill black action, and you'll see that within our action, it's playing an action called fill black test of the set that it's in. So again, same thing, we record a deselect, select minus. Again, the mask is selected by default. So then we can play fill black again. And we just do that all the way up. So now our image should look exactly the same, whether our dodge burn is turned on or off. We delete this, and we're going to test that dodge burn action one more time just to make sure that it works. And there you go. That is one dodge burn action. And, just as a bonus, I'll show you how this dodge burn action works so you know what you just made. So basically, dodging and burning lets you brighten and darken parts of your area. So if I wanted to brighten this area down here, I could go to my brush, set my flow to something pretty low, maybe like a 5%. And go into the mask here for the plus and just brush in this area. And I'm going to be dodging this area up and brightening it. And if I want to darken an area down, I could come down to one of my darken masks and darken an area down in order to create more contrast. And this is something you'll see a lot in fashion and beauty work, dodging and burning on people's faces. This is something that is used a lot to even lighting and relight people and create shadows. So dodging and burning is definitely something you should learn to do, and now you have an action that'll help you do that. So I feel like that's a good stopping point for now. In the next video, we'll dive even deeper, make a little bit even more complex actions, show you how to use some of the AI tools to make selections and work those into your actions as well, refining things, refining hair, and then last, which will probably be another video, we'll talk about batching these actions across folders of images in order to speed yourself up a ton. So if you liked this, remember, give the video a like, give me a follow. It would be really appreciated. I don't have many followers right now, so that just helps me stay motivated making these videos. I appreciate all of you, and I will catch you in the next video.